What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so there's no basketball going on right now, as we all know, and many of us are wondering if and when the season will resume. It's looking more and more like the 1 month suspension will be extended. We are just in the early stages of this crisis that we're in. You know what I mean? It's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. The experts think that this may peak sometime in May, possibly June. As a result of that, even though I know that the board of governors and the Commissioner Silver, are going to reconvene in about 3 weeks' time to see the state of affairs, it's more than likely that the season will not resume until at best, at best June, which would put everybody 3 weeks, 3 months behind. 3 months behind. Okay, that means that if you play the season, the remaining part of the season, that means the playoffs wouldn't start until July, and that the finals wouldn't be until September. Um, and then if you go that route, there's problems because number one, there'll be virtually no off season for the NBA players if you don't delay the next season to accommodate for things. You know what I mean? Then you're talking about possibly delaying the next season for 2 months to give the players some rest. And then you also run the possibility of the NBA season interlapping with um, the NFL season. And then if you go even later into July, then you will interlap with not only the NFL season, but Major League Baseball season, which is really the playoffs. That's their main bread and butter. And it'll be weird seeing the NBA Finals being played if you do regular season games in July. All right, the remaining regular season games in July. The playoffs will start in August. The finals will be in October. How weird is that? Usually, when we see the finals, we sweating and shit. You know, it'll be fall. But then it would be kind of good from a sports angle, though. I mean, if you're a sports fan, shit, you would have Major League Baseball playoffs. That's what most people watch Major League Baseball nowadays. You'd have the NFL season for those who still watch it. You know what I'm saying? And then you have the NBA. So that would be kind of good, you know. But the problem is next season. You're going to have to postpone the season. You're going to have to postpone 2021. You're going to have to postpone it for like 3 seasons or 3 months or something, right? Then it's the thing where, well, maybe we won't have the rest of the regular season. Maybe we'll just go straight to playoffs. Then with that situation, and Ticket touched on this in his video talking about this, then you could have potential lawsuits because there are going to be some teams saying that's not fair. There are 17, 18 games to go. Our season, the rest of our regular season schedule is against, mostly under 500 teams. The team that got in the playoffs, they would have played a whole bunch of good teams. More than likely, we would have got in the playoffs. This isn't right. It'll be so many different NBA teams, and owners suing the NBA, and it could just get ugly. But having said all that, I'm going to disagree with an article and the author of the article. Okay, the guy's name is Brad Botkin, right? And he makes the point that he thinks that, and I'll put a link to his article in the description box. He makes the point that he thinks that this hiatus, if anything, could be a good thing for the Lakers. He highlights the minutes logged by LeBron James, the mileage that he has. He highlights the fact that you have all these different players who are over the age of 30 on the team right now. JaVale McGee is over 30. Rondo is over 30. Howard is over 30. Danny Green is over 30. Markieff Morris is 30. Davis isn't under 30, but he's playing a lot of minutes, and that he has injury issues, and that one of the best things for this team is to just rest. And I understand his premise. I understand where he's coming from to an extent, but there's a difference between rest, right, and inactivity. Okay. Um, Remember, there were a couple of teams in the NBA, right? Remember that little era where the old man ruled the NBA? I'm talking like from the late 90s, I would say like 95 to 98, when all of the good teams were the older teams, like the Chicago Bulls, the New York Knicks were a little bit older. Uh, you know, the Houston Rockets, the Utah Jazz, they were all older teams that had experience. And they were just schooling all the younger guys, right? But one of the things I remember is that whenever one of those teams had a long layoff, it, for the most part, screwed with their chemistry. Like the Chicago Bulls, it was a good thing. It was a really, really good thing in hindsight. And I think Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, all of them would agree with this. It was a really good thing for them to have gone through that war with the Pacers because it did tire them out. Okay, it did test their championship might, but it it kept them sharp mentally in some ways. Uh, it kept their chemistry going. It kept their juices going. All right. The Utah Jazz, on paper, outside of Jordan and Pippen, were a much better team than the Chicago Bulls. They had home court advantage. They should have won that series. But if I remember correctly, they had like an 11-game layoff or something like that because they had swept the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals that year. So I think they had like an 11-game layoff. And I think that ultimately hurt them. I think that hurt them a little bit in that series. Although I think they won the first game, ultimately I think that hurt them. Um, when you got an older team, in my opinion, rest is important, but too much rest can get an older team out of rhythm. You know what I'm saying? Um, Older players can come back faster from inactivity. By that I mean, uh, if you're 23 years old and you suffer a minor injury and you're out for a week, you know what I'm saying? You can come right back and in a game or two, you're right back to where you are. If you suffer the flu, a severe flu, for instance, and you're 33 years old, and you're an NBA player, and you're out for 2 weeks, and you come back, your rhythm is off, your wind conditioning is way off because you're not as young as you used to be. Your rhythm is off from a shooting standpoint. Your whole rhythm is off from just game standpoint. And we're talking about not weeks, we're talking about months. No, this is the worst thing for the Lakers, especially considering how they were rolling. You know what I'm saying? They were pretty much the best team in the Western Conference record wise the entire damn year. They were really rolling in the last 2 weeks of the regular season, albeit they did lose to the Nets that last game, but they were rolling for the most part. Inactivity of this magnitude is the worst thing for a team that's older like that. It's the worst thing because now they're going to have to pretty much start right back from scratch. And then another thing about this situation with the Lakers, this was the first time. This is the first time I can think of since the first since LeBron's first Cleveland run, right? I mean early in his Cleveland run, that there really wasn't any la drama. You know what I mean? Like, for lack of a better term, there wasn't any in-house issues really. Um, LeBron knew that what was at stake. You didn't need any distractions this time. You don't need all this extracurricular shit going on. Just focus on basketball, focus on the task at hand. And you can see that LeBron was. I know some people that subscribe to me don't like the dude. It doesn't matter what I say, but even if you don't like the guy, you can at least say that he came into this season in a far different mode than he did last season. Okay, he know how important it is for the Lakers to win a championship. Okay, and in that aspect, I disagree with the author entirely. And in particular, I get what he's talking about with LeBron logging a lot of minutes, but he can handle it. He can handle it. Um, he's shown that he's been able to handle it. He's convinced me now, the way he's been playing, that I'm starting to become. I'm convinced now that last year was a fluky injury. Um, he can handle it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like this. If I was LeBron James, I'd rather play until the wheels fall off and win a championship than to be able to play maybe another 2 or 3 years and not have another opportunity to win one. That's how I would be if I was LeBron. Even if it came down to me getting a type of injury that is going to be career threatening. If I'm able to win a championship, I'm going to go all out. Kevin McHale, back in 1987, during the 86-87 season, this is when Kevin McHale was at his best. This is when Kevin McHale would routinely win Eastern Conference Player of the Month. This is when it was starting to become debated whether or not he was better than Larry Bird on the team. You know, and he broke his foot during the season. And like I said, this is when McHale was averaging like 26 points, 8 or 9 rebounds, shooting 60% from the floor, unbelievable post presence, pretty good shot blocker. Had something of a mid range game, but more of his damage was in the post. But anyway, the point is, he fractured his foot. He said he needed surgery because he wanted a championship so bad. He wanted to go for a repeat and solidify the Celtics as a great team. He eschewed surgery and played the rest of that year on that bad foot. Ultimately, they failed, and ultimately he paid a price because although he was able to play another 6 years, that foot was never the same, and he was never quite the same player after that. But that's what you do when you're in those situations. You saw what Ronnie Lott did when he was with the 49ers. He chose to just cut his goddamn finger off rather than go through the surgery and miss playing football, and miss an opportunity to be a part of his team. Some guys are built like that. I'm not saying LeBron's built like the prototypical alpha male, but nah, I don't agree with that one. And like I said before, if LeBron and other people said this, Ticket said it, this might be the last year for LeBron. If he doesn't do it this year, there's no guarantees that there's going to be other tomorrows. You know what I'm saying? The Golden State Warriors come back next year. Kevin Durant comes back next year. The Clippers are still going to be here, whether or not Harrell's going to be there. You don't know how Portland's going to be next year. They may be not the Portland this year, but maybe the Portland the year before. You don't know how Utah's going to be. You don't know how any of the, and there's always a surprise team. There's always this team that nobody's looking at that goes from being an average team to almost damn near a championship caliber team. Miami this year, who knows next year. So there's no guarantees with LeBron. So that's why I think that, the halting of the season was the worst thing for the Lakers, not the other way around. Not the other way around. This helps maybe somebody like, if anything, long term, going into July, let's say the season was resumed in July, this will help a team more like the Brooklyn Nets, who, if I'm not mistaken, they're not out of the playoffs statistically, I don't believe. I think they're like, what, in the playoffs? Let me check some out right quick. This layoff helps teams that have had injury issues. Give me a second, guys. The Nets right now are 7th seed, right? They're a 7th seed with 18 games to go. Now, if the season resumes, let's say June, July, now all of a sudden, Kevin Durant's in the picture. That changes things for the Brooklyn Nets. The Milwaukee Bucks, even though they were rolling, first seed, best record, 53-12, they were kind of reeling a little bit those last couple of games, and Giannis hurt his knee. But this rest helps him because he's had an injury issue. Okay, that supersedes sharpness. All right, when you have those type of players who you want to come back to your team and be a part of your team, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, to me, in closing, the injury thing helps those teams as far as long term. The Lakers, I don't see the situation being helpful. Now, if it was maybe 2 weeks, I'd be willing to see his point. But 2 months, nah.